I just want to do God's will.
The kind of revolution that the world needs is a Christian revolution.
If you want a miracle, you've got to expect it to happen.
You are the recipients of God's grace and God's blessings, and you rejoice in that reality.
Welcome to Life Today Live. Did you know that you have influence? Wherever you are, whether you're in leadership in some capacity, whether you're in school, maybe you're at home taking care of the home, maybe with children, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, you have influence. What will you do with your influence? Maybe that's not even the biggest question. Today's guest says that how is greater than what? It's written by Preston Poore, and Preston Poore has some pretty impressive resume experience in leadership. Large companies like Coca-Cola and Hershey's. But he had a realization that changed how he led. It changed how he influenced people. And you're going to hear about that today and get some pretty awesome wisdom for your life. So I appreciate you guys being here. If you know someone that would benefit from this, and I bet you do, hit that share button. Preston, welcome to Life Today Live. Great to have you on the program today.
Hey, Randy, great to be with you. Thank you.
So just a little bit of background. I mentioned Coca-Cola and Hershey's, but what exactly does that look like? Give us, I know you probably get tired of this, but I want people to really grasp kind of where you've been. Give us a little bit of your resume and the places that you've been and the leadership you've served in.
Well, thank you. I used to actually work for Ralston Purina, too. You didn't mention that. So I used to sell dog food and cat food. And everybody that had a dog or a cat, I was great friends with. I'd have samples and stuff like that. And then if you can imagine working for Hershey chocolate for 6 or 7 years. I mean, all the candy, the samples I had, people loved it. Great brand to work with. Everybody wanted to talk to you. And I tell you what, working for Coke and with Coke for 22 years, I got to see a lot internationally around the United States. But man, talk about what I consider the pinnacle of the consumer products industry. What a great brand to work with. And so I've been blessed and honored to be with really 3 great organizations from a consumer products perspective.
Yeah. So I had a friend whose mother worked for the M&M Mars Corporation growing up, and that was the house to be at. So I'm sure you were that house for a while.
That's right. Exactly right.
So what exactly did you do at these different companies? What were some sort of the track of your leadership path?
Yeah, it was all the way from sales to a group at Coke called Franchise Leadership. And so what that was is I worked for the Coca-Cola company. I don't know if you know much about the Coke system. Most people are pretty curious, and I can just give a quick download on that. Yeah. The Coca-Cola company makes concentrate, and they sell it to bottlers. And the bottlers, what they do is they put the water and the carbonation, they put it together and put it in bottles and cans, and they sell it. And so they had to have somebody stand in between the company and the bottler to help with strategy formation, inspire execution. And I spent a good time of my career in that. I also did a role called Strategic Merchandising Solutions at the Coca-Cola Company. So you think about all the point of sale material that you see in a grocery store, convenience store, anywhere that's a sign or a rack that holds a Coca-Cola product, my team did. And so I always joke and tell people that's where I lost all my hair and it turned gray over those few years that I did that. But yeah, long career, varied career. I was very fortunate to work with some great leaders. And I also learned from a lot of not so great leaders. And that's where all of my, I guess I appreciate the opening that you had on that. I think some of the wisdom that comes from it really is from learned hard in the trenches. And that's what I look forward to sharing with people today is talking a little bit about that.
Yeah, you know, I've been around the world in a lot of third world countries. And there are 2 universal words I've found, hallelujah and Coca-Cola.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, great brand.
Yeah, so that's huge. So walk us through some of the how and the what and how you maybe some of the transformation that you went through in these leadership roles.
Yeah, so I think 2 things I'd mention to you. One is I've been through 11 reorgs at the Coca-Cola Company. So every 2 years I was up for whether my job was going to be eliminated, was going to be changed, something was going to happen, and I also had to participate in conversations about others as well. And so I always joke and say that working for the Coca-Cola company is like being a member of Congress. Every 2 years, you're up for re-election. And then once you're reelected, then you sit down in your chairs, you do the musical chairs. You have to regain and campaign if you can for the next couple of years. And in all of that, I experienced a lot of change. And there was one time, Randy, I remember sitting in a conference room, and we had an HR person in there, and probably 20 managers around this big table in the Coca-Cola building. And she sat down and goes, "You know why we're here, don't you?" And the answer was obvious, but it was just kind of a stark reality that we were making decisions for people. And in that, when we went through the evaluation of all the people that we were looking at for the next organization that we'd be, I discovered that results were table stakes, but the how they got those were the big differentiator. If the person was an inspiring leader and they delivered great results, guess what? They typically stayed, or they were welcomed into the organization and they got promoted, or they were moved into a bigger role. But you know what? If you were a jerk, and somebody that didn't care about people in the wake, that's when typically we saw a lot of people be exited. They'd leave that way. So that was one thing. That was maybe a foundational thing for me to start thinking, okay, how is greater than what? The way we do things does matter. It's not that the what doesn't count, the results don't count, but how we get there is important. And then real quick, in 2005, I had a opportunity presented to me. I remember doing a conference call with an employee, and I'd had a rough relationship with this individual. I tried to make him into a little Preston, and I was a jerk. And I remember getting on the conference call. We're about to do an annual review with him, Randy. And I sit down, my boss is about to come into the room, and I pick up the phone. And even before I could say hello or get a word in, this individual on the other line goes, "Preston, you're a jerk," and I quit. And the individual hung up. Yeah. So I'm like, wow. And I'm sitting there, Randy, I'm bummed because that's the second person in a matter of a month or two that had quit on me. And I marched down to my boss's office, caught her before she came in the conference room. I told her what happened. And she had this pregnant pause. And those are always scary because you never know what's going to come out. And I was a top performer at the time. I actually put myself and performance over people. And she looked at me dead in the eye and said, "Preston, you're a top performer, no doubt. But the way you do things, how you do things, how you're leading, how you're communicating, how you're connecting with people, it stinks. You need to go get it fixed if you want to keep rising in this company." And man, I tell you what, Randy, that set me back. I remember going back in the hallway, and I before I left, I asked her, I said, "How do I fix it?" She goes, "I don't care how you do it, just go get it done." And then I went back to my office and I said, "Man, this is a tough situation." All I could hear was her echoing in the back of my head, "You're a jerk, you're a jerk, you're a jerk." Really long story short. I went and engaged an executive coach and also prayed a lot. And I found two things. The executive coach helped me understand what my triggers were in the marketplace and helped me see people with dignity, respect, and empathy, and the importance of doing that versus focus just on the performance. And man, I tell you what, in 2005, Randy, the Lord got a hold of me. And I finally said, I surrendered. I said, "Lord, I'll give you my career." And I gave my life to the Lord. I decided to follow him in 8th grade. Fast forward to 2005, and I'm old now, but fast forward to 2005, I hadn't yet surrendered my career to him. And so I was living in two different, if you're a Venn diagram person, you understand that I had a secular and a sacred. You probably heard that conversation, right, from other guests. But I never understood the overlap. And God put me in a position that, yeah, man, we got to talk about this, Preston. I'm going to work in you, and then I want to work through you. And he's done wonderful things for me ever since that moment. And I'm so thankful for it. So that's the transition. I heard it at a corporate level about how is greater than what. And then I realized myself personally that I was putting performance over people, and that was the what over the how. And I flipped those, and I started thinking about how do I approach people, not from a manipulative perspective, but in an effort to build them up, to encourage them, to help them engage in the work that they're doing. And if they do that, they deliver great results. It was just a wonderful experience to go through, and that's why I write about it now.
You know, the interesting thing is you're at a secular company, and I've worked for a Fortune 500 company before, but I think the tendency is to think, okay, it is all about performance, the results you get, because it's all about the money, right?
Yeah.
But what you're saying is even in those environments, that's not true. Did you have any temptation at all when this happened, to start blaming others, to say, well, that person who quit, I mean, you know, we're better off without him or whatever. He was a jerk, you know. I mean, was there any tendency to deflect the blame?
Oh, of course. I think that's human nature, is to deflect the blame. But then that's where that awareness comes in, that self-awareness, the emotional EQ, which I didn't have any. As a matter of fact, just as a side note, I took a test a couple years ago on empathy, and I scored really low on it. I really did. And I said, I went to my wife and I said, no, come on, this can't be right. And she took it. And my wife is probably one of the best persons that I know. I mean, she's just fantastic with people. She ranks and kills the test. I mean, gets a great score on it. I go back and take it again. I got a worse score, Eddie. And so I wasn't self-aware enough. And I think as I started pointing the blame at others, I had to sit back and figure out there was something common between all the situations that I was in. And it was me. It was me. And I had to realize that there had to be something that changed inside of me before I could go and start making an impact out in the world.
You know, that's probably the hardest part for most people is realizing, is you know, looking at self. I mean, so the self-introspection, that obviously is a place to start. Have you heard of the framework of hungry, humble, and smart?
No.
What is his name? Patrick Brangioni? Something. He's got an Italian last name. Anyway, I went through that recently. Our church was doing it, and I thought, okay, I'm in a little bit of a leadership role at the church, and I thought, well, I'll just do it along with these people. And I hit the smart part, and I thought that meant intelligence, and I thought I should be fine there, right? Yeah. No. It was social. It was like social awareness, how your words and actions impact others.
Right.
And I think that men tend to be a little low in that in general. Right. But how do we? If that hadn't been pointed out to me, well, it was also pointed out to me on the job, if you will. But it put into that kind of language. I hadn't gotten that. I've been in ministry for 20-something years now, and we don't necessarily get that. How do we? Where do you start for people that are like, I don't even know how I do? I mean, you just ask your coworkers and trust them to tell you the truth, which is a power relationship's not going to work. I mean, where do we start?
For me, it was really starting to see how the Lord looks at us. And it was the idea that we're made in the image of Him, of God. And if I'm made in the image of God, so are you. And therefore, I need to have dignity and respect for you. And I need to walk away from being self-interested into your interest. And that's where I think the growth has to happen. If we take the eye off of us and put it on the Lord, and then He'll move it into other people, then we can actually encourage them. We can help them develop. We can help them reach their goals. It becomes less about us trying to climb a corporate ladder or achieving something. It's about what can they do. And the funny thing is, Randy, I found, is that when you do that, you can do extraordinary things.
Interesting. Did you have, was there a gap between you being a Christian and in the secular world, or were you able to connect?
How do you mean?
I know that when I was at a secular Fortune 500 company, I mean, they kind of didn't take them long to figure out that I was the guy that went to church on Sunday, right?
Oh, yeah.
And I had, a friend say, look, I'm glad that religion kind of stuff works for you, but just don't bother, And,
yeah, sure.
And so you kind of have those things. And I guess you can react one of three ways. One, you can get preachy and turn your workplace into the mission field. In a sense, it is. But or you can just withdraw and not, you have two lives like you talk about. I mean, how did you, especially when God did this work in your life, how did you integrate your faith into the secular workplace?
Yeah, so it's interesting at the Coca-Cola company, there are so many different worldviews in that, right? So you have to know that you're walking amongst all of that. And I found for me, it was a couple of things, Randy. One, it was about earning the right. That's something I learned in Young Life a long time ago. Earn the right to have a conversation about the gospel with somebody, care about them. I'm not manufacturing. I'm there to stand on a street corner or in the elevator preaching, right? The other thing is I didn't ever propose to start meetings with prayer. People might think just because I was a Christian, I should say, well, why aren't you starting your meetings with prayer? No, I didn't do that. So there's all kinds of things somebody might expect me as a Christian to do in the workplace when you have this life transformation. But let me tell you what I did. I doubled down on things like culture and employee engagement. Employee engagement, I don't know if your listeners know or not, the folks watching today, but employee engagement is really simple. It's the level of discretionary effort that somebody's willing to put forth based on their relationship with their manager and or their work environment. So the better boss or the better work environment you have, the more that you're going to lean into work and you're going to do a great job. And if you've got a boss that's toxic, tough, the environment's tough, you're not. Mm-hmm. And so what I tried to do, and actually I was appointed a couple times at the Coca-Cola Company to lead engagement teams where we had really rough work environments. We'd get scores from these different companies that would give us, and tell us that all the work that we had to do. I was honored a couple of times, 10 years apart on each team, but to lead engagement initiatives. And I saw that, Randy, as an opportunity for me to be a redemptive influence in the marketplace. And what I meant by that is somebody that makes a positive change. And so I was trying to do that to glorify God. If that gave me the opportunity to talk to somebody or whatnot about why I was doing what I was doing, yeah, sure, I took advantage of that. But I wasn't overt preaching every day on meetings, starting conference calls with Bible verses and stuff like that. It was more about the actions I had, and if those actions then and the relationships led for me to mention something, I would do that.
Yeah. You write in your book that God taught me to value people over performance, and that's when everything changed. And that's such a great, concise way to look at it, is to just to value the people. And you're not going to go wrong when you do that.
That's right. That's right. And I want to be real quick.
Mm-hmm.
That's not fluff. Hear me today, if you're listening. That idea, if you focus on people and care about them, that will make a huge difference in you personally and in their lives and in your career.
Yeah, and you can't fake that. That has to be genuine. No. And if you're struggling in that area, that's where you turn to self and to the Lord and say, Lord, help me do that, because that's what Jesus did. That's all right. This is the book, How is Greater Than What. It actually drops next week, but you can pre-order it now and have it, on its way as soon as you can get it. And I can tell you, I get a lot of books here. Almost, literally daily here. And I don't have time to read all of them. This one's, when this one hits, this one's going to be read because this is too important. And I'm just curious, Preston, when you made these changes personally, what did it do for you? And then what did it do for the people you worked with?
Yeah, well, it's funny. I think if people worked with me during that 22-year career at the Coca-Cola Company, kind of midpoint, if you look backwards, the first 10 plus years, the people would look at me and like, no, I still don't believe Preston. He was a jerk and all that, right? So, but hopefully the second half, people would have seen this transformation that came slowly over time. What did it do for me? I think it helped me draw closer to the Lord. I was leaning on Him. Leaning on His strength. Before that, Randy, I was leaning on my own stuff. I use the phrase, and I used to have it on a mirror that somebody gave me, a little piece of paper down there that says, if it is to be, it's up to me. That's a great phrase, right? And I think a lot of people espouse that. But you know what? I know there's active participation, but I had to depend on the Lord for the strength to get through a lot of the circumstances I was in. And so I found myself pouring into His Word, praying more, and seeking His will and His guidance. I think what it did, it started helping me see people, like we've mentioned, see them differently. It healed relationships. It helped me think about things differently. I started thinking about how to prioritize things, how to engage upper management, folks below on the side. The way I approached things were totally different. And I want to be honest with you. When that thing happened, I mentioned earlier in 2005, it was not like a light switch went off. As a matter of fact, I went through 2 360 evaluations a few years later. One of them said that, Preston, you're kind of back in your old ways after I went through that. And then a second one that they actually asked me to go through because they thought I was still having a challenge. But the team came back and told me, nope, it's not you this time, it's us. And the team said, here's what we're going to do to live up to our side of the bargain. So I think it made a big difference for me. Personally, I think it made a bigger difference for those around me. And I also learned at the Coca-Cola Company that position's one thing, but your influence that you have inside of an organization isn't dependent upon being a VP. I never made it to a VP. I was never good at politics. I didn't enjoy it. in working through it. And that's not all that it takes, but it also is not just performance. So there's a mixture between the two in an organization like that. And also, I became less ambitious, if you will. I was worried about results, maniacal about results. But I wasn't trying to climb the corporate ladder for me. I was always trying to encourage and help people get where they want to go.
Yeah, I mean, you know what? That's a great realization right there. I've been with people who were always trying to climb the ladder, and they realized they were happier where they were at, which is more of a mid-level in a large company like that, and they were good there. And so knowing where your place is actually a good thing. And not every you don't. Oh, it's lonely at the top. So
yes, it is.
I'm curious now. So right now you what is it, consulting? Would that be the way you describe what you do?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, consulting.
As you travel, when you get into church situations, what do you see there? Because it's a big difference, I find, and we're not a. I mean, legally we're an association of churches, but I mean we're a parachurch organization. We call it ministry. It's vastly different than what I experienced in the secular world. What do you see, and how can we be better?
Wow, thanks. A loaded question. Next.
Just one. Top three. I don't know.
No, that's a good question. You know, all I can tell you is from personal experience. I had the chance to mentor and coach a young individual, a local church here in Atlanta, for about a year. And I took him through, actually, the Leadership Challenge by Jim Kouzes. I don't know if you're familiar with that book or heard of that before. 3.5 million copies sold. But I've done this with a number of people. And I took this gentleman through the content, and he had never really thought about leadership and the concept and the construct of church, how to treat people, how to model behaviors, how to prioritize things, solve problems, make decisions, all of that. But I also want to caution, I know that it's interesting that some of the nonprofits I work with too, Randy, the corporate principles or things that work in the Fortune 500 world don't necessarily always work in nonprofits or churches. They don't.
Okay. Why is
there
that?
are some evergreen principles, certainly, but the way they look at results. In nonprofits, I've seen a lot of times you're less likely to let go of certain individuals sometimes on that. So I think that things are different. But I'd ask you to help me in that a little bit. What would you see from a leadership perspective that's different in a church versus what you saw in the Fortune 500 world?
I mean, the biggest one that I'm facing now. I mean, you talk about reorganization every 2 years.
Yeah.
We would be good to do it every 20 years, you know.
Oh,
I mean,
wow. Okay.
And so you do get a lot of people. A little bit of what we're facing right now. We are doing a little bit of some reorg, where you build a certain way, it succeeds, and you're done.
Yeah.
And that, especially in today's culture, with everything changing just quickly, not just, I mean, technology is a big part of it, but I mean, generational changes and things like that.
Yeah.
You're either going to grow old with the people that help build you and die, or you're going to have to change in some capacity. And the core, the gospel never changes. No. It's just the audience does. This is not supposed to be a consulting session for me, though. I would value your time.
Well, that's okay. But let me, real quick on that, that made me think of something. We are working through something in a nonprofit that I'm engaged in right now. And you set a new vision, a new mission with a new president. And so with that comes a new organization, and then folks kind of need to come along with the vision, the values, and the mission. Some aren't. And I think in nonprofits or in the church world, sometimes we are hesitant to make changes with people that we need to. Sometimes it's hard decisions.
Yeah.
And they're not made, to be quite frank with you. Like in the corporate world, boom, you're gone. But in those nonprofit or church environments, you're more likely to keep people, like to your point. And so change is probably a lot slower in your arena that you're speaking of than there is in the corporate world.
Yeah, it definitely is. And I mean, and I get it. You talk about pursuing eternal impact over, temporary recognition. And that goes to how you treat people and not just, results oriented, but yet at the same time, I mean, when you're in a church or a nonprofit, those are donor dollars. You have some responsibility to the people who support you to, manage that well. But to bring this back sort of to the person working wherever they're working, or maybe they're not even in a corporate environment.
Right.
When you talk about that eternal impact, I mean, does it really just boil down to how we treat people?
Well, I tell you what, there's a few things that I think of. I think about the parable of the talents, and you've got the 5, the 2, and the 1 talents that are given. Using what God has given you, and then ultimately, if you use that, your talent, skills, and abilities to glorify Him in the workplace, I think you're going to hear words, "Well done, good and faithful servant." I think it's our job to do our very best that we can to be a redemptive influence in the marketplace. But you know what? I don't think Jesus, He never said anything about make a 10% increase on your revenue. But He did talk a lot in the Beatitudes about, treating people and how you treat them. And our relationships with one another and with Him. And at the end of the day, I'm going to be very honest with you, and I have been the whole time, so don't let me play with you on that. When I retired from the Coca-Cola company, I might look back at some of the great projects I was involved in, like launching Coke Zero, which is Coke Zero is a famous brand now.
Oh, yeah.
Helped do that. But people, when I pass away someday, aren't going to remember that. That's not going to be in my obituary that Preston did this and this with these brands. It's going to be my family, my friends, and the way I treated my coworkers that will be remembered. And if you keep that in sight, that's very amorphous sometimes to some people. It's hard to get your hands around. But at the end of the day, me looking back and seeing that it was more important to have a great family relationships, great relationship with my wife, my kids, the rest of my family, my friends, my peers. That's what lasts. It's not the Coke Zero sitting on the shelf, right? People forget that. So,
yeah, and I think we all know that, but living by that day to day, you just get busy, and so I appreciate you bringing that to the forefront. This is good. All right, I want to show people your website. This is PrestonPoore.com. You can reach him through that. If you're listening rather than watching, it's Preston and Poore with an E at the end, Poore.com. And this is a great reminder of, it's not always what you're doing, it's how you're doing it, and it's the people that matter the most. They're probably not going to put your resume on your tombstone, but they'll put what you meant to them there someday. So appreciate that. All right, Preston, this is good, obviously, and I appreciate you taking the time to share it, and as well as putting it into a book. I mean, it's one of those things. I'm at the point in my life where I'm trying to kind of really implement a lot of the things that you're talking about, and I wished I had taken it more seriously. I know the voices were out there, when I was in my 20s and 30s. But man, this is wisdom, and we should seek godly wisdom, and you're offering it. So I appreciate it. Is there anything you want to add before I let you go?
No, man, what an opportunity just to be with you today. Enjoyed the conversation. Great questions, very thoughtful. So thanks for the time.
No, absolutely, and thank you. And I appreciate everyone out there watching. If you know someone that will benefit, and we all will, hit that share button. If you haven't liked, followed, or subscribed at Life Today TV, I would invite you to do that. Some interesting things are going on. I tip my hand a little bit. There'll be more coming up this fall, so stick around. We'll see you next time here on Life Today Live.